I just spin it all hang out. How? That's why I'm easy.
So you would like to get the Commodores together again?
Oh, gosh, yes.
So
For
why
30
not?
years, I've been trying to do
come on,
this.
then.
What happened to the members of the Commodores? This famous band gave us hit songs like Easy and Brick House. But what are the struggles they faced behind the scenes? Were there fights, personal losses, or shocking truths that fans never knew?
Our lead singer had gotten drafted to the Vietnam War, and we needed a substitute, you know. I said, hey, man, you sound great.
He didn't even realize that he had that gift.
No, he didn't. Very innocent guy, just, you know.
How did their lives change after their biggest successes? Let's dive into the untold and emotional stories about the Commodores and their members.
I just spin it all hang out. How?
The Commodores were one of the biggest soul bands in the world during the late 1970s and early 1980s. Before they became famous, they were just a group of college friends trying to make music at Tuskegee University in Alabama.
Motown legends, the Commodores, they dominated the charts in the 1970s. You probably remember them with their massive hits like Brick House, Easy, 3 Times a Lady.
The journey began with 2 smaller student groups, the Mystics and the Jays, coming together. Some of the members from the Mystics were Lionel Richie, Thomas McClary, and William King.
None of it would have happened if a young man named Thomas McClary hadn't overheard someone whistling at a university in America's South. That someone was Lionel Richie.
Thomas McClary, the guitarist, recalls meeting Lionel Richie in an interview. He was standing in the registration line at Tuskegee University when he heard someone behind him whistling a jazz tune by Eddie Harris. Thomas turned around and asked, "Are you a musician?" The young man, who was shy, replied, "No, not really." Thomas explained that he was forming a band for the freshman talent show and needed musicians. The young man, Lionel, said he lived nearby and could gather some guys for an audition at his grandmother's house across the street.
I was amazed at the fact that he was so innocent. I was set on trying to find some guys, you know, to put a band together because I wanted to meet some girls.
When Thomas arrived at Lionel's grandmother's house, he was surprised to see Lionel coming down the stairs playing a saxophone. Thomas laughed and said, "I thought you said you weren't a musician." Lionel humbly replied, "I play a little bit." Thomas immediately knew Lionel was perfect for the band.
Our lead singer had gotten drafted to the Vietnam War, and we needed a substitute, you know. I said, hey, man, you sound great.
He didn't even realize that he had that gift.
No, he didn't. Very innocent guy, just, you know.
The band performed at the freshman talent show and, to their surprise, won. They didn't have their own equipment, so they borrowed from another campus band, the Jays. When some members of the Jays graduated, Thomas and his friends decided to merge with them. They needed equipment, and the Jays needed more members. The Jays included Andre Callahan, Michael Gilbert, and Milan Williams. With these 6 talented students joining forces, they decided to come up with a new name for their band. William King, one of the members, came up with the name Commodores by chance. One day he opened a dictionary, ran his finger down the page, and landed on Commodore. He laughed, saying they were lucky because they could have ended up with a much less appealing name, like the Commodes. The Commodores went on to become one of the most popular and successful soul bands, known for hits like Brick House and Easy. Their music combines smooth melodies with powerful vocals and catchy rhythms, making them loved by audiences all over the world. Their rise from college friends to soul superstars is a testament to their talent and determination, proving that sometimes great things start with just a few friends and a dream.
You were, you know, one of the defining sounds of a sort of funk vibe.
Well, we wanted to set a new trajectory for music.
Thomas McClary shared about the early days when they would drive all night just to get to New York, hoping to find a chance to perform. But first, the group had to convince Lionel's grandmother to let Lionel go on the road. Lionel was supposed to go work at a bomb factory in Joliet, Illinois, so his grandmother was worried. They all promised her that they wouldn't get involved in drugs or alcohol, and after working a few small gigs, they saved up just enough money to set out. However, they ran out of money on the New Jersey Turnpike. When they reached a toll booth, they didn't have the $4.50 needed to pass through. The toll collector looked at their crowded van and said, "I believe you, because if you had money, you would have rented a U-Haul." When they finally made it to New York, things didn't go smoothly. They went to the YMCA, hoping to trade some work for a room, but when they came back outside, they found that all their music equipment had been stolen. With no money and no instruments, they felt desperate. They ended up at a famous spot in Harlem called Small's Paradise, where big bands often played. A guy there offered to help them get their equipment back if they paid $50, but they didn't have it. Surprisingly, this man, who later became their manager, Benny Ashburn, lent them the money. He even set up an audition for them at Small's. They impressed everyone by dancing and playing at the same time, which was new to the audience. Their performance led to a great relationship with Benny, who helped launch their careers. At Small's, they even got to play alongside big names like Kool and the Gang. After Benny Ashburn became the manager of the Commodores, he reconnected with his longtime friend Suzanne DePass. Suzanne was someone Berry Gordy, the head of Motown, had hired to help find new talent for his label. Berry trusted Suzanne because she was already successful in the music business. One of Suzanne's first projects at Motown was working with a young group called the Jackson 5. The group had just appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show and was becoming very popular.
Oh, baby, give me one more chance.
To help the Jackson 5 get even bigger, they needed a great opening act for their tour. Suzanne thought the Commodores would be perfect since they were known for putting on amazing shows. The Commodores got the chance to tour with the Jackson 5 for 2 years. This tour helped them grow their fan base and show off their talent on big stages. After the tour, Berry Gordy was so impressed that he signed the Commodores to their first recording contract with Motown. This marked the start of their successful music career. The Commodores became well known with their instrumental song, Machine Gun. The song was played at sports events and even appeared in movies like Boogie Nights and Looking for Mr. Goodbar. It reached number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Another popular song, I Feel Sanctified, inspired later bands like Wild Cherry, who recorded the famous Play That Funky Music. The Commodores also made a short appearance in the 1978 movie, Thank God It's Friday. In the film, they performed their energetic song, Too Hot to Trot,
Too hot to trot now, baby. Now you're too hot to stop.
while their hit songs, Brick House and Easy, were also featured.
You know, hang out, I see some pretty.
Easy like Sunday morning.
You didn't want to leave the Commodores. Is that true?
No, I had no intent.
I just always assumed that you were like, okay, I'm Lionel Richie now. I'm ready to go and go on my own.
The Commodores became very successful, but after a while, they decided to take a break from recording and touring. During this time, Lionel Richie, the lead singer, thought it was a good idea to work on a solo album. Motown, the record company, encouraged him to try it. Richie's solo album became a big hit, and this made him want to keep going as a solo artist. However, not everyone in the Commodores was happy with this decision, and even today, some of the band members still feel upset about it. After Richie left, the Commodores continued, but things were not the same. William King, one of the original members, spoke about how he felt about Richie's departure in a 1985 interview. He said that it wasn't just about Richie leaving the band, but how he left that really hurt. Richie had promised the band he would come back after working on other projects, like working with Kenny Rogers, Diana Ross, and finally his solo album. Each time the group was left waiting, and because of this, they couldn't tour or make new music. Promoters didn't want to book the band without Richie.
We didn't really think of it as being this long. It's just going to be a break for a minute to kind of get everybody's attitude down a little bit.
Did they call you and say, hey, you know what, we changed our mind?
No, that never happened.
That never happened?
That never
Is
happened.
it too late now?
King explained the situation using a strong example. He asked, would they book the Beatles without Paul McCartney? For the Commodores, Richie was like their McCartney, an important part of their sound and success. But instead of telling the band he was leaving for good, Richie kept them waiting. They had no idea if he was coming back, and this uncertainty really bothered them. Eventually, the group decided to keep going without him, but the way things happened left a lasting impact. Richie, on the other hand, said in interviews that he never meant to leave the band hanging. He truly thought he would return to the Commodores. But as he worked on his solo projects, he found that he liked being on his own. He enjoyed the freedom of not being tied down to a group and found it hard to go back. Despite this, from King's point of view, the waiting and not knowing when or if Richie would return was hard to forgive.
So you would like to get the Commodores together again?
Oh, gosh, yes.
So
For
why
30
not?
years, I've been trying to
So
do
come on
this.
then.
King also talked about how losing Richie affected their success. At first, the group thought they would be fine without him. They had made music together for years, and many believed the band's sound came from all members working together. But to the public, Richie seemed like the main star. People assumed Richie had produced, arranged, and written all of the Commodores' biggest hits. Even though he had written many, the rest of the band had played a big part too. When Richie left, they realized that much of their audience was only interested in the band if Richie was part of it. This hit the group hard, both in popularity and financially. However, the other member of the band, Thomas McClary, shared his thoughts about the feud within the group. He pointed out that jealousy can be a dangerous feeling. He praised Lionel Richie, saying, "Lionel is very talented. He has a great voice and is a wonderful writer." McClary believes that even if some band members don't want to admit Lionel's talent, it doesn't change the fact that he's great. McClary also mentioned that William King is often seen as a problem. He said, "William is probably the least talented one of us all, and he has been the main stumbling block." He also feels that Walter Orange, another band member, listens too much to King, which makes things worse. When asked if he would like to have a Commodores reunion, McClary was excited and said, "Yes, I would love it." He talked about how he has spent nearly 30 years trying to make it happen. He shared a memory from 2008 when Lionel invited him and Ronald Lapred to perform together in New Zealand. The fans loved seeing them on stage again.
Yes. In fact, Lionel Richie and Ronald Lapred and I actually performed in New Zealand. So there's an appetite for the reunion, obviously.
McClary also mentioned that in 2009, Lionel wanted them to perform at the Essence Music Festival in New Orleans. They tried to invite the other band members, but the bitterness was too strong. Some haven't spoken to Lionel in 40 years. McClary feels frustrated, saying, "Come on, you've forgotten what you're mad about." It's clear that McClary hopes for a time when they can all come together again.
Oh, boo.
It was that bad.
It was that bad.
After Lionel Richie left the Commodores, the group replaced him with Skylar Jett as a new co-lead singer. But that wasn't the only change. Thomas McClary, one of the founding members of the band, also decided to leave. He wanted to start his own solo career and even create a gospel music company. In a recent interview, McClary explained why he and Richie both left. He said that things were changing in the band. Some members of the group weren't as excited about making music anymore. They were distracted by other things in their lives. McClary felt like he needed to step up and help keep the band strong, but it became clear that it was time for him to move on. McClary also talked about the death of Benny Ashburn, their longtime manager. Benny was a big part of the band's success, and when he passed away, it was a sad moment for everyone. McClary said that even though they were doing well, some members weren't putting in their best effort. He compared it to a sports team where everyone has to do their part, even if they're not the one scoring the most points. After leaving the Commodores, McClary and Richie worked on songs for other artists like Kenny Rogers and Diana Ross. They even wrote the famous song Endless Love. McClary wanted people to know that even after leaving, they were still doing great things. When McClary left, guitarist Sheldon Reynolds joined the Commodores. Reynolds brought new energy to the group, but later he left to join Earth, Wind & Fire. After that, the Commodores had to find someone else to play guitar, and William Watt King, a trumpeter in the band, took over on guitar for live shows. But before he left, he went through a scary experience. He was flying a single-engine plane when something went wrong. He had to crash land the plane on a busy freeway in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a very dangerous situation, but thankfully Milan and the band's press agent got out of the plane without any injuries. The plane, however, caught fire and was completely destroyed. This incident could have ended very badly, but both men were lucky to escape unharmed. Fast forward to later on, when Milan Williams decided to leave the band. His decision was quite a big deal because he refused to perform in South Africa during the apartheid era. Apartheid was a time when black and white people in South Africa were treated very differently and unfairly. Milan stood up for what he believed was right, but this choice created a lot of tension within the band. His departure marked the end of the original lineup of the Commodores, which had been very successful. After he left, the band began to change its style and moved away from the funky sound that had made them famous. This was a tough time for the group as they tried to find their new identity without one of their key members. Sadly, the story doesn't end well for Milan Williams. In the years after leaving the Commodores, he was diagnosed with leukemia, a type of cancer. He fought hard against the disease, but after 2 years of struggling, he passed away in 2006. His death was a heavy blow to the band and their fans. Many people who loved the Commodores were heartbroken to hear the news of his passing. Milan was not just a great musician, he was also a significant part of the group's history. The band also faced other challenges. Ronald Lapred, the bassist, left the Commodores as well and moved to New Zealand. He dealt with his own issues after leaving the band, and life became different for him too. The loss of Milan and the changes in the band made it harder for the Commodores to keep their original spirit alive. Like many bands that have been around for a long time, the Commodores have faced some serious problems with money and the law. Most of these issues have been about the band's name and how the money from their music is shared. As time went on, the original members of the band went in different directions, making it harder for them to come together without tension. The trouble started in 2013 when Thomas McClary, a founding member, began using the name The Commodores for his own band. At the same time, other original members, William King and Walter Orange, kept performing as the Commodores with different musicians. This caused confusion among the fans, as they didn't know which group was the real Commodores. The situation became so serious that it led to a long court battle over who had the rights to use the band's name. In 2018, a court in Florida made a decision that favored the remaining members of the Commodores. The court ruled that only the members who were still performing together as the Commodores had the right to use the name. The court explained two main reasons for their decision. First, the court said the members who kept performing together had something called common law trademark rights to the name. This meant they had the legal right to use the name because they were the ones still actively performing as the Commodores. Second, the court looked at old agreements made by the band over the years. These agreements showed that the name of the group was shared by all the members, but it didn't allow just one person to use it if they left the band. Because of this, the court decided that the members who were still together in the band could continue using the name. McClary could say he was an original member, but he couldn't use the name The Commodores for his own band. This meant he couldn't call his band The Commodores featuring Thomas McClary or the 2014 Commodores. The court wanted to make sure fans wouldn't get confused about which group they were seeing. So after years of legal issues, the members who kept performing as the Commodores were able to keep the rights to the famous name. Over time, the Commodores' music shifted from their original funky sound to a more commercial pop style. In 1984, they added James Dean J.D. Nicholas to the band as a co-lead singer alongside Walter Clyde Orange, the drummer. However, after some time without any big hits, they finally had success again in 1985. That year, they released their last album with Motown Records, Night Shift, and it included the song Night Shift, a tribute to Marvin Gaye and Jackie Wilson, two beloved singers who had passed away the previous year. The song was a big hit, reaching #1, third in the US, and won the band a Grammy for Best R&B Performance by a duo or group with vocals. Although the shift was aimed to attract more listeners, it made some fans unhappy. Many fans missed the old lively sound and were not sure about the new pop style. This change wasn't just about the band wanting to try something different. The music industry was also changing fast. In the 80s and 90s, new technology began to take over. People started listening to music in different ways, especially with the rise of digital music. Because of this, record labels were pushing bands like the Commodores to reach a wider audience. They wanted to sell more records, which meant changing their music to fit what was popular at the time. In 2010, the Commodores decided to re-record their hit song Night Shift as a tribute to Michael Jackson. This came after Michael's sudden death in 2009. The band was deeply affected by the news. While on tour in Europe, they were performing at Wembley Arena in London on June 25, 2009, when they heard that Michael Jackson had passed away. At first, they thought it was just a rumor, But after confirming the sad news, they felt the loss deeply. The very next night, while performing in Birmingham, lead singer J.D. Nicholas made a special change to their song Night Shift. He added Michael Jackson's name into the lyrics as a way to honor him. From then on, the Commodores began mentioning Michael Jackson and other famous R&B stars who had passed away during their performances. They were inspired by this and decided to re-record Night Shift with new lyrics to pay tribute to Michael on the first anniversary of his death. The Commodores were influenced by some of the greatest musicians, such as Santana, Jimi Hendrix, Albert King, James Taylor, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. These artists had very different styles, but they all shared a soulful energy. The Commodores wanted to mix these influences and create something special. They aimed for a sound that was raw, real, and could connect with people from all walks of life. This creativity paid off as the Commodores became very successful. Over their career, they sold more than 70 million albums worldwide. Their music has reached people from all over the world. They are known for their smooth melodies and songs that make people want to sing along. The Commodores have also earned a lot of respect in the music world. They were inducted into the Alabama Music Hall of Fame and the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. These honors show how much the music community appreciates their work. They've also been nominated for 9 Grammy Awards, which is a huge achievement. They even won 1 Grammy, adding to their long list of successes. Even though many years have passed, the Commodores are still active in music. As of 2020, 3 key members, Walter Clyde Orange, J.D. Nicholas, and William Watt King, were still part of the band. They perform with a 5-piece group called the Mean Machine. The Commodores continue to perform around the world in arenas, theaters, and festivals. They keep their music alive for both old fans and new listeners. Their music has left a lasting mark on the world, and their legacy is still strong today. The Commodores, despite facing challenges along the way, remain dedicated to honoring the legends who came before them and keeping their own music alive for future generations.